What if everything you believed about Abby and Brittany Hensel was only part of the story? For decades, the world has been captivated by their extraordinary lives, amazed by the rare condition that made them unlike anyone else on Earth. But behind the headlines lies a journey filled with unimaginable challenges, remarkable resilience, and one life-changing moment that few people truly understand. A decision was eventually made that many experts once believed was impossible. A decision so dangerous that it could have changed everything forever. What led to that moment? What really happened during the hours hidden from the public eye? Stay with us as we uncover the incredible story behind one of the rarest medical cases ever recorded. For 34 years, Abby and Brittany shared a single body while living as two completely independent individuals. Every movement they made, every step they took, and every task they completed required perfect coordination and complete trust in one another. They never experienced life alone, not for a single moment. Although millions of people watched them grow up through television programs and media coverage, very few could truly understand the quiet determination, patience, and emotional strength required to live this way every single day. Their lives became a powerful example of cooperation unlike anything most people could ever imagine. Then came a moment that no one expected. A medical decision was considered that carried enormous risks and had the potential to change their lives forever. After that point, nothing would ever be the same again. To understand why their story became so extraordinary, it is important to begin with the rare condition that joined them together from birth. Abby and Brittany Hensel were born as dicephalous parapagus conjoined twins, one of the rarest forms of conjoined twinning ever documented. This condition is characterized by two heads developing on a single torso, making it one of the most unusual human births ever recorded. Because of its extreme rarity and complexity, their case has been studied extensively in medical schools and research institutions around the world. It offers valuable insight into how the human body can develop in an uncommon, yet remarkably functional way. Their story actually began long before they entered the world. During normal identical twin development, a single fertilized egg divides completely into two separate embryos shortly after conception. Once that separation is complete, two independent babies develop, each with its own body and organs. However, in cases of dicephalous parapagus twins, the division process begins but never reaches completion. Instead of fully separating, the developing embryos remain partially joined. As a result, two individuals are formed with two heads, two brains, and two upper spinal columns while sharing a single lower body. This incomplete separation is exactly what occurred in Abby and Brittany's case. Although they share one torso from the chest downward, their internal anatomy is far more complicated than simply having one body. Some organs exist separately for each twin, while others are shared between them. This unique arrangement is the primary reason doctors believed separation could not be safely performed. Each sister has her own brain and upper spinal column. As those spinal columns extend downward, they gradually merge into a single pelvis. Even more remarkable is the way each brain controls only one side of their shared body. Abby controls the right arm and right leg, while Brittany controls the left arm and left leg. From infancy, they learn through constant practice and extraordinary teamwork how to synchronize every movement with incredible precision. Many people assume they shared every major organ, but that was not the case. Abby and Brittany each have their own heart, allowing each upper body to maintain its own circulation. They also have two separate stomachs, which eventually connect to a shared digestive system lower in the body. They share one liver that performs its essential functions for both sisters. In addition, they share one set of intestines, one bladder, and one reproductive system. They also rely on one shared pair of lungs to supply oxygen throughout their body. Their rib cage and chest cavity developed in a highly specialized way that supports all of these organs together, allowing both sisters to survive and function successfully despite their extraordinary anatomy. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of their condition is their nervous system. Each brain sends signals exclusively to its own side of the shared body, yet both nervous systems must remain perfectly synchronized for even the simplest activities. Walking across a room, sitting down, reaching for an object, maintaining balance, or climbing stairs all require constant communication and cooperation between them. If one sister attempted to move without the other responding appropriately, they could easily lose their balance. From the moment they began learning to crawl, they developed this coordination naturally. As they grew older, Movements that would seem almost impossible for anyone else gradually became effortless through years of practice and mutual understanding. When doctors examined Abby and Brittany shortly after birth, they immediately realized the extraordinary complexity of their condition. In many cases involving conjoined twins, surgeons attempt separation during infancy if the shared organs can safely be divided. However, Abby and Brittany's anatomy presented challenges unlike almost any other known case. Their shared liver, shared lower digestive organs, shared pelvis, and the intricate connections between their spinal nerves made separation an extraordinarily dangerous procedure. The pelvis presented one of the greatest obstacles. As their two spinal columns merged into a single lower structure, the nerves responsible for movement, bladder control, and lower body stability became deeply intertwined. Attempting to separate these nerve pathways carried an extremely high risk of paralysis, permanent organ failure, or death for one or both sisters. Their shared liver posed another major challenge. The liver contains one of the body's most intricate networks of blood vessels, making it one of the most difficult organs to divide surgically. In Abby and Brittany's case, that single liver supported both of their bodies simultaneously. Even a minor surgical error could have caused catastrophic bleeding that surgeons would have struggled to control. Additional complications came from their shared reproductive system, bladder, and intestines. These organs cannot simply be divided into two fully functional systems. Reconstructing them for two separate bodies would have required surgical techniques and medical technology that simply did not exist during their early years. After carefully evaluating every aspect of their anatomy, doctors reached a clear conclusion. Separation was considered medically impossible. The risks were simply too great, and the likelihood of survival was far too small. Rather than pursuing a procedure with such overwhelming danger, doctors focused on helping Abby and Brittany live healthy, fulfilling, and independent lives together. Over the years, the sisters consistently demonstrated that their shared body could function with extraordinary efficiency. They learned to walk, write, eat, play, and perform everyday tasks with remarkable coordination. They attended school, learned to ride a bicycle, and eventually mastered driving a car. Achievements that reflected not only their unique physical abilities, but also their unwavering determination, resilience, and lifelong partnership. Their ability to cooperate made their unusual anatomy workable in everyday life. Medical experts continued to study them over the years, and their case remained an example of how complex and delicate conjoined anatomy can be. Every specialist who examined them repeated the same conclusion. Separation would threaten their lives because too many vital systems were shared in ways that could not be safely divided. For more than 3 decades, this belief remained unchanged. Advances in medicine improved many types of surgery, but their specific anatomy still presented challenges beyond what surgeons believed they could overcome. The shared pelvis, the merged spinal nerves, the shared organs, and the need to rebuild entire systems for two bodies kept the idea of separation out of consideration. For 34 years, one medical truth remained accepted without debate. Abby and Brittany could live full lives, but they could never be separated safely. If doctors were certain separation could never happen, what changed after 34 years? The operation that separated Abby and Brittany required planning at a level rarely seen in modern medicine. Because of the complexity of their shared organs and nerves, the hospital environment had to be tightly controlled. Access to the surgical wing was restricted, and movement in and out of the area was limited to essential staff. This was done to protect focus, privacy, and safety. A case like this demanded calm, order, and strict attention to detail. A large team of surgeons, anesthetists, nurses, engineers, and specialists worked together throughout the operation. Experts in neurosurgery, vascular surgery, organ reconstruction, and rehabilitation were involved, with each group carrying out a specific role. No single doctor could handle such a case alone. This level of teamwork is common in complex conjoined twin operations, where different systems of the body must be handled at the same time. Robotic surgical tools were used to achieve extreme precision. These tools can make movements that are smaller and steadier than human hands, making them especially valuable in delicate procedures involving blood vessels and nerves. During this operation, they helped reduce blood loss and allowed surgeons to separate shared tissues carefully without causing sudden damage. Artificial intelligence systems also assisted the medical team by mapping nerve pathways before and during surgery. These systems created detailed images showing how the nerves connected and where signals traveled. This was especially important because the twins' lower spinal nerves were closely joined. Any incorrect cut could have caused permanent paralysis or loss of organ control. By mapping the nerves in advance, surgeons were able to plan each step carefully before touching the tissue. The first stage of the operation focused on separating the shared blood vessels in the chest and abdomen. This required extreme care because both bodies depended on stable blood flow. Surgeons had to create new pathways so that each twin would have an independent circulation after the separation. Special clamps and temporary support lines were used to control blood movement throughout this delicate process. As the operation continued, attention shifted to the spinal region, which was considered the most dangerous part of the procedure. Their two upper spinal columns merged lower down near the pelvis, making the separation extremely risky. Surgeons had to gently separate the nerve bundles while protecting their function. Throughout this stage, monitoring equipment continuously checked brain activity, muscle responses, and reflex signals every second. The operating room remained quiet except for the sounds of the machines and brief technical communication between the medical team. During this long process, a serious crisis occurred. Abby's heart rhythm became unstable before stopping completely. Immediate resuscitation measures were taken. Cardiac specialists worked quickly to restore her heartbeat, while the rest of the team maintained Brittany's stability. This moment demonstrated just how fragile the situation was. A delay of even a few minutes could have brought the operation to an end. Fortunately, Abby's heartbeat returned, and the work continued without interruption. The next phase involved reconstructing the shared organs. Because Abby and Brittany shared a liver, intestines, bladder, and reproductive system, surgeons had to create new structures for each twin. The liver was carefully divided while ensuring that both sides retained enough tissue to continue functioning properly. Artificial support materials were used to rebuild areas that could not be naturally separated. These materials are specifically designed to work safely with the human body while allowing healing over time. Throughout the reconstruction, breathing support systems and carefully controlled anesthesia kept both twins stable. Every change in blood pressure, oxygen level, and nerve response was monitored closely. Medical teams rotated regularly to prevent exhaustion, while the surgical plan remained steady, organized, and precisely coordinated. As the hours passed, the surgical field gradually transformed. What had once been a single connected lower body slowly began to take the shape of two separate bodies. Muscles were carefully separated and reattached, while skin grafting techniques were prepared for the final closure. Synthetic support layers were added wherever natural tissue was insufficient. This careful rebuilding process was just as important as the separation itself because it ensured that each twin would have the best possible chance of recovery. Finally, the last stage focused on the pelvis and legs. This required dividing the bone structure and reconstructing support systems for two completely independent lower bodies. Special orthopedic tools and stabilizing frames were used throughout the procedure. Every movement had to preserve balance and support long-term mobility. When the separation was finally complete, two surgical tables held two patients for the first time. The medical team continued checking the vital signs repeatedly throughout the recovery process. Independent blood circulation, breathing, and neurological responses confirmed that both bodies were functioning on their own. After many hours of careful work, the surgeons completed the final stage by closing the surgical sites with great precision before transferring both patients to separate recovery rooms. Although the operation itself had been declared successful, no one could predict how their minds and bodies would respond to such an extraordinary transformation. However, surviving the surgery was only the beginning of a much longer journey. The greatest question still remained unanswered. Could their minds truly accept a life that was no longer physically shared? The recovery period proved to be even more difficult than many had anticipated. During the first month after surgery, neither Abby nor Brittany was able to move without assistance. Their muscles had become extremely weak following the lengthy operation, while their nervous systems needed time to adapt to controlling bodies that no longer depended on constant cooperation with one another. Recovery began with simple breathing exercises. Even basic actions such as sitting upright, turning the head, or lifting an arm required significant effort. Movements that most people perform automatically had suddenly become daily challenges. Nurses and physical therapists remained close at all times, ensuring that neither sister experienced unnecessary strain or injury during rehabilitation. The emotional impact was just as overwhelming as the physical recovery. Throughout their entire lives, Abby and Brittany had experienced constant physical closeness. Suddenly, for the first time, there was space between them. This unfamiliar separation caused deep emotional distress, and both sisters often described the sensation as though a part of their body was missing. Their brains required time to adjust to this completely new reality. To help reduce anxiety, mirrors were placed inside their rooms so that whenever they looked up, they could immediately see a familiar face. This simple measure gradually helped their minds adapt. Therapists also recreated familiar sounds, routines, and elements from their previous daily life to make the new environment feel less unfamiliar and emotionally overwhelming. After 6 weeks of recovery, the sisters were finally allowed to meet each other in person. It was the first time they had ever seen one another as completely separate individuals. The meeting was quiet, deeply emotional, and filled with unspoken understanding. They reached out to hold each other's hands, reassuring themselves that both were still alive and present despite everything they had endured. Following this reunion, physical therapy became considerably more demanding. Rehabilitation progressed from sitting without assistance to standing with the support of braces. Learning to walk proved especially painful because both their muscles and nervous systems were adapting to entirely new movement patterns. Every single step required a level of balance they had never needed before in their lives. To maintain their emotional connection during the nights, medical staff installed a video communication system inside their rooms, allowing them to see each other whenever they wished. This simple arrangement significantly reduced fear and provided comfort, helping both sisters sleep more peacefully. As the months passed, their confidence slowly increased through constant daily practice. They gradually learned how to hold objects independently, turn their bodies, sit comfortably, and even lie down alone. Their therapists patiently guided them through every movement, carefully building new habits one step at a time. Although progress remained slow, it continued steadily. By the end of the year, they reached one of the most important milestones in their recovery. On the first day of January, both Abby and Brittany successfully took independent steps without any physical support. Doctors, nurses, and therapists watched closely as they carefully walked across the room on their own. The achievement demonstrated that their bodies were adapting to the extraordinary changes. Rehabilitation continued with a strong focus on building strength, improving balance, and increasing independence. Their progress was carefully documented so improvements could be measured over time. Every small success strengthened their confidence. Eventually, when they were discharged from the hospital, they faced an entirely different challenge, a life that no longer resembled the one they had always known. Abby and Brittany Hensel had always lived a life built on constant cooperation. Sharing one body meant sharing routines, living space, and decisions from childhood through adulthood. As the years passed, this unique connection shaped not only their physical existence, but also their emotional relationships and family life. Every major change experienced by one sister naturally affected the other in direct and meaningful ways. A significant turning point came in the year 2021 when Abby married Josh Bowling. This marriage was a real and well-documented event, with photographs later shared publicly confirming that Abby had legally entered into marriage. The event introduced a situation unlike anything their family, or even legal experts, had previously encountered. Because Abby and Brittany shared one body, Abby's marriage immediately raised a number of complex legal and emotional questions. From a legal standpoint, Abby alone was recognized as the wife, and the marriage certificate carried only her name. Although this legal status did not remove Brittany from the situation physically or emotionally, the marriage itself officially belonged to Abby. For the first time in their adult lives, official documents acknowledged one sister in a role that did not apply equally to the other. This unusual reality required great understanding and sensitivity from everyone involved. Josh Bowling understood from the very beginning that he was not entering a conventional marriage. He recognized that Abby's life could never be separated from Brittany's constant presence. Daily life demanded respect, patience, compassion, and emotional balance from every member of the family. For Brittany, this transition created a quiet but deeply personal identity struggle. Throughout her entire life, she had shared every important decision equally with Abby. Now, one of adulthood's most significant milestones belonged primarily to her sister. Although Brittany remained supportive, present, and actively involved in everyday life, the emotional meaning and legal recognition of marriage rested mainly with Abby. Their parents also experienced an emotional period of adjustment. Since childhood, they had raised Abby and Brittany as a single unit, speaking to them together and planning nearly every aspect of life with both daughters equally in mind. Abby's marriage required them to rethink that lifelong approach. They now had to recognize Abby's new role as a wife while continuing to treat both daughters with equal love, fairness, and care. Achieving this balance was far from simple. It demanded time, honest conversations, and considerable patience. Their younger sister, Morgan, also experienced strong emotions during this period. Having grown up seeing Abby and Brittany function as one inseparable team, watching Abby enter a new stage of life that did not fully include Brittany felt unfamiliar and difficult to understand. Over time, Morgan gradually learned that adulthood would not unfold in exactly the same way for both sisters. Although this realization occasionally created tension within the family, it ultimately led to greater understanding as they openly discussed their feelings together. Because of these emotional pressures and the unique challenges they faced, the family eventually sought guidance from professional counselors. After receiving therapy, the sisters found it easier to express emotions that had once been difficult to put into words. The sessions created a safe environment where they could openly discuss feelings of uncertainty, sadness, and hope, helping them adjust to the changes in their lives while maintaining the close bond they had always shared. As Abby embraced married life, she continued her career as a teacher while adapting to new household routines that now included her husband. Brittany remained part of the same home environment, but she processed many of her emotions privately. Constant public curiosity about their marriage placed additional pressure on both sisters, leading them to protect their personal lives by limiting what they shared publicly. Although Brittany wholeheartedly supported Abby, she also had to come to terms with the fact that some milestones might be experienced differently because of their unique circumstances. Rather than creating resentment, these differences encouraged personal reflection and emotional maturity. Their relationship remained strong, yet each sister gradually developed a clearer sense of her own identity. As Abby entered motherhood, Brittany focused increasingly on her own ambitions. She had long been fascinated by science, medicine, and human biology, and she became actively involved in educational and advocacy initiatives that raised awareness about conjoined twins and supported families facing similar challenges. These efforts gave her a meaningful purpose that reflected her own interests and personality. Traveling to conferences and awareness events introduced Brittany to new people, ideas, and experiences beyond her everyday routine. During this period, she developed a friendship with Ryan, who shared her passion for science and learning. His willingness to see and respect her as an individual, rather than simply as one half of a pair, strengthened her confidence and reinforced her growing independence. Small personal choices also became important symbols of individuality. While Abby preferred bright colors, particularly red, Brittany increasingly favored darker shades and distinct clothing styles. Shopping according to her own preferences became another way to express herself and exercise personal choice. Although complete independence in decision-making was impossible because of their shared body, Brittany became more comfortable voicing her opinions, leading to stronger communication and greater mutual understanding between the sisters. Despite pursuing different interests, Abby and Brittany remained emotionally close. They continued to spend time together each evening discussing their experiences and reflecting on their day. These conversations preserved their deep connection while allowing each sister to develop her own identity. Their lives demonstrated that personal growth and shared unity could exist side by side. Just as many believed their story had reached a stable chapter, reports of Brittany's pregnancy attracted widespread attention. Because the sisters are dicephalous parapagous twins who share many lower body structures, including the reproductive system, such a pregnancy was considered medically unusual and prompted considerable public and professional interest. The rarity of their anatomy had long been discussed cautiously within medical circles, making the news especially surprising. Medical experts recognized that any pregnancy in such circumstances would require exceptionally careful monitoring because of the complex anatomy involved. Specialists would need to pay close attention to factors such as circulation, organ function, physical balance, and maternal health. Meanwhile, the public responded with a mixture of admiration, curiosity, and concern, revealing how little many people understood about the realities of the sisters' condition. Rather than addressing widespread speculation directly, Brittany chose to maintain her privacy and allow medical professionals to communicate appropriate information. Abby stood firmly beside her throughout this period, providing emotional support and maintaining close contact as media attention intensified. Their family's unity once again became a central source of strength. The renewed public interest also inspired filmmakers to expand plans for a documentary exploring this new stage of the sisters' lives. By sharing selected moments under carefully controlled conditions, they hope to present an authentic account of their experiences while reducing misconceptions and speculation. At the same time, Abby began considering facial reconstruction surgery as a way to strengthen her own sense of individual identity and help others recognize her more easily as a separate person. Together, these developments reflected both sisters' ongoing commitment to personal growth while continuing to support one another and advocate for greater understanding of families affected by conjoined twinning. They understood how rare their lives were and how much confusion surrounded conditions like theirs. With that awareness, they began planning a foundation dedicated to supporting medical research, improving public education, and providing financial assistance to families facing similar circumstances. The foundation focused on delivering accurate information about conjoined twinning, promoting access to early medical care, and ensuring long-term support for affected families. Having lived through experiences that very few people could truly understand, they possessed unique insight into challenges that often remained invisible to the public. Their goal was to help other families feel less isolated and better informed when making difficult medical and personal decisions. As Brittany's pregnancy progressed, doctors continued to monitor her condition with exceptional care. Regular examinations focused on organ function, blood circulation, and her overall physical comfort. Every appointment contributed valuable medical knowledge because cases like theirs remained extraordinarily rare. Although much of the process stayed private, its significance extended far beyond their personal lives. For Brittany, the journey was both emotional and deeply meaningful. Like many expectant mothers, she experienced excitement and concern throughout her pregnancy, but she also carried the added burden of constant public attention. She concentrated on protecting her health by getting adequate rest, maintaining a calm environment, and relying on the unwavering support of her family, which played a vital role in reducing stress. Throughout this period, Abby's presence demonstrated the remarkable strength of their lifelong bond. However, to fully appreciate how extraordinary their story truly is, it is important to understand something that most people never realized about the way their shared body functioned throughout more than 34 years of life. For most of their lives, Abby and Brittany Hensel lived with a body that functioned in a way very few people could comprehend. From the outside, their appearance seemed unusual, but internally, their anatomy formed an exceptionally organized system that allowed two individuals to survive and thrive within a single torso. Medical specialists studied their anatomy for many years because it demonstrated the remarkable ability of the human body to adapt to an extremely rare condition while continuing to function in a stable and coordinated manner. They were born as dicephalous parapagous twins, meaning they had two heads, two brains, and one shared lower body. Although their upper bodies were separate in several important ways, everything from the chest downward was arranged to support both of them simultaneously. Each twin possessed her own heart, and both hearts functioned together within a single chest cavity. Blood circulated through a shared network of blood vessels that supplied both brains and the rest of their shared body. This circulation had to remain perfectly balanced at all times, because any change in blood pressure affecting one twin could immediately influence the other. As they grew older, their bodies naturally learned to regulate this delicate balance. They also had two separate stomachs, allowing each twin to experience hunger independently and eat according to her own needs. However, after food passed through the stomachs, it entered one shared digestive system. They shared a single liver, one set of intestines, one bladder, and one reproductive system. As a result, digestion, waste elimination, and hormonal regulation all occurred through one combined biological pathway that supported both of them simultaneously. Their nervous system was even more extraordinary. Each brain controlled only one side of the body. Abby controlled the right arm and right leg, while Brittany controlled the left arm and left leg. Their spinal cords began separately at the neck before gradually joining together as they extended toward the pelvis. Because of this arrangement, nerve signals from both brains passed through closely connected regions. Even simple activities such as walking required perfect cooperation between both brains. If one leg moved without the other responding appropriately, they would lose balance and fall. From early childhood, they developed this coordination naturally without formal instruction. Through everyday experiences, they learned to crawl, stand, and eventually walk by working together continuously. Over time, their brains developed an almost automatic rhythm that allowed them to move without discussing every action beforehand. Their nervous systems adapted so effectively that their movements became smooth, balanced, and remarkably synchronized. This extraordinary level of coordination remains exceptionally rare and demonstrates the incredible flexibility and adaptability of the human brain. The pelvis represented one of the primary reasons doctors believed separation surgery could not be performed safely. In this region, their spinal cords merged into a single network of nerves responsible for controlling the legs, bladder, bowel function, and overall body stability. Attempting to divide these nerves without causing permanent and devastating damage was considered nearly impossible. The shared liver presented another major challenge. Because the liver contains an extensive network of blood vessels, dividing it into two fully functioning organs requires extraordinary surgical precision. In Abby and Brittany's case, the single liver simultaneously supported both twins. Any surgical mistake could have resulted in severe, uncontrollable bleeding that would have been extremely difficult to stop. Their shared reproductive system created an additional layer of complexity. These organs are highly delicate and closely connected to both blood vessels and nerve structures. Successfully separating them would have required surgeons to create two complete reproductive systems where only one originally existed. For many years, available medical technology simply could not accomplish such extensive reconstruction. Doctors consistently explained these dangers in clear and realistic terms. They warned that damage to the spinal nerves could result in permanent paralysis. Sudden disruption of blood circulation could lead to irreversible brain damage. If organ separation failed or serious infection developed after surgery, death remained a real possibility. These were not minor risks, but life-threatening complications significant enough to prevent serious consideration of separation for decades. Because Abby and Brittany remained healthy and were able to live full, productive lives together, surgeons saw little justification for exposing them to such extraordinary danger. The fundamental purpose of medicine is to improve life rather than introduce unnecessary risk. Since they enjoyed a stable quality of life, the safest medical decision was to allow them to continue living exactly as they had always done. As the years passed, remarkable advances in medical imaging, robotic surgical systems, and nerve mapping technology dramatically expanded what surgeons could visualize and accomplish. Even so, Abby and Brittany's anatomy remained one of the most difficult and complex cases ever encountered in medical science. Many specialists continued to believe that successful separation would remain impossible throughout their entire lifetime. Their two brains shared control of one body without confusion. Their shared organs successfully sustained two lives without failure. The remarkable coordination between them became so effortless that many people overlooked the extraordinary level of cooperation required every single day. For more than 30 years, their unique biological system continued functioning without any major breakdown. From one body emerged two remarkable lives. Abby and Brittany did far more than survive what once seemed impossible. They transformed the limits of medical understanding and redefined what many experts had long believed could never be achieved. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on the next video now appearing on your screen.